everyone, and welcome to Tome of Uselessness. I'm Dan here doing some solo recording, and as you can see from the title, I want to talk about the Odyssey by Christopher Nolan. Just came out 2026. I saw it last night, opening night. Well, the Friday. Could have saw a Thursday show, but decided to do a Friday show. But wanted to talk about this movie. I know I haven't done an episode in a little while, and just excited about this one. It was interesting leading up to the movie. I've never read the Iliad or the Odyssey. I've toyed with it once, maybe like a decade ago, that I was like, oh, maybe I should read that, but, never did. And I didn't rewatch a bunch of his stuff leading up to it because I've seen many of his movies many times, but the one I did rewatch was Oppenheimer because I've only ever seen that once when I saw it in theater. Still holds up. Incredible movie. I don't know if I've talked about it on the show, maybe once, but again, recommend watching that one. I always joke like it's a tough recommend because it's a 3-hour panic attack, and so like the average moviegoer, maybe not their cup of tea, but man, it's still such a good movie. Yeah, I was excited. It was funny when I learned as well that this movie was 3 hours on the nose, which I found out like when I was rewatching Oppenheimer in particular. Like that movie also was 3 hours on the nose, and its pacing is still so great for a 3-hour movie that I was kind of like not dreading that runtime going into this one, where I was like, yeah, he figured out how to do a 3-hour movie that kept me compelled the entire way through. So I was like, I'm sure this one will follow suit, which it did. We'll talk a few things here first, of course. This one I was kind of surprised. It was obviously directed by Christopher Nolan, but he also wrote it, which normally, of course, he writes with, his brother or collaborates with somebody. In this case, no, it was entirely him, based off, of course, Homer's writings from back in ancient times and stuff like that. The music was done by Ludwig Göransson. I think I pronounced that correctly. But he also worked with him on Oppenheimer and has done a bunch of other scores. So I think with many things with Nolan, he has his collaborators that he likes working with, and if he does, he brings you back, because like when we get to the cast, that is obviously very reflective as well. But it's also the behind the scenes stuff, like the cinematographer is Hoyt van Hoytema, sorry, but he also filmed Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet, and Oppenheimer as well for Christopher Nolan. A longtime collaborator with him, and again, the movie has the same quality cinematography. Like every shot is compelling and incredible kind of a thing. So budget, this shocked me, $250 million, which, again, because of the size and the production, not shocking, but also kind of shocking. That's a lot of money for a project such as this. Like, that's Avengers money on a non-Avengers movie. But of course, his last few movies have been quite successful. But yeah, so far, like I said, the box office, there's not much. There was projections, and I think I saw $73 million so far since Friday kind of a thing. So I think I read an article in Variety maybe that they've upped it and how much they think it's going to make. But yeah, doing well so far. We'll see. Oppenheimer, of course, was extremely successful, so I'm curious to see how this one goes, being that's a little more accessible maybe for audiences, but it didn't have that same kind of Barbenheimer push that brought in a lot of audiences, where people were doing the double feature and stuff like that. So yeah, curious to see how this will go. I think it'll have, good word of mouth. As I've already kind of, as you tell from my voice and words, the movie was great. It was so good, and I do recommend it highly. Probably want to go see it again. But yeah, we'll get to that. I don't want to go through too quickly through the cast, because the cast is quite large, and I'm sure I will miss some people, but I was not surprised, like every new person that showed up that I was like, oh wow, they were in this movie too, kind of thing. So, and they were all used well and played to their strengths. I thought the cast ensemble was great, and like I said, really enjoyed their performances. Matt Damon, of course, as Odysseus, Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Tom Holland as Telemachus? Can't remember now. Telemachus. But Yeah, that's the trio main. Tom Holland was in the movie far more than I was kind of expecting, but again, it helps balance all out the story, I guess, and the way it's told. Robert Pattinson plays Antonius, and I believe it's Corey Hawkins plays Polybus, who's kind of like his second in command. Like they're scheming together essentially. Robert Pattinson, of course, is one of the suitors that's trying to marry Penelope the entire time. Elliot Page as Sinon, who's actually Antonius's brother. John Leguizamo as Umaeus, I believe. He's, again, in the movie far more than I was expecting, and also I didn't expect John Leguizamo to be in the movie. I was just like, oh, cool, John Leguizamo, he's good, and he's having, like, he's kind of settled, not settled, but he's in a good character actor role where he shows up, like in a John Wick or something, couple good scenes, and then you're just like, yeah, John Leguizamo, nailed it. So yeah, he's in the movie more. Mia Goth is in there. It was funny because she's not in the movie much, and is one of Penelope's like handmaidens, and her name is Melantho, but she just kind of comes in and out, and I was like, is that Mia Goth the whole time? Because she's had some bigger movies recently, but again, just in there. Ryan Hurst plays Mentor, and I thought his name was obviously a little on the nose, but it's also like, I was like, oh, that's what he's credited as because he mentors Tom Holland and what have you. So I was like, okay. Benny Safdie as Agamemnon, and I didn't realize, because I've obviously heard his name many times, but he in Oppenheimer played Teller, the person who was pushing the H-bomb the whole time. And I just didn't know, right? Kind of thing. I was like, oh, that's that guy. Charlize Theron as Calypso. Again, I didn't know she was in the movie. When she showed up, I was like, oh. And she looks so, like, of that world. Like, she belongs there, kind of almost in a sense where you're like, yeah, I would believe that. Zendaya as Athena. And, she, again, they costume her in the way she's utilized in the movie. It's like she belongs in that world. John Bernthal as Menelaus, who's Agamemnon's brother. And I don't know, I haven't seen him in too many things. Like, I haven't watched all the Punisher stuff he's been in, which I should. I've been meaning to get to it. But I've seen him in not Traffic, Sicario. And I don't know, he was one of the only ones where, like, maybe just his speech pattern was still too much like his modern day speech pattern. So it just kind of like, his was the only one where I was like, maybe they could have done something there. But he looked great. Everyone looked great in the movie. Lupita Nyong'o plays Helen / her sister, which this name is very difficult for me. Clytemnestra? Yeah, very odd. But Helen's sister, who's married as well to Menelaus. And like many people in the movie, not a big role, and she's just in there, for a few scenes here and there, but some good stuff. And Samantha Morton playing Cersei. It was interesting when she was there. Like, I had that in my brain. I was like, I know this woman. I've seen her before, but just couldn't click it in my brain until I was looking up afterwards, and I was like, oh, she's from Minority Report. She's the main precog, as well as she was in, what was the name of that movie? I watched it based off of Blank Check's recommendation. The name escapes me at the moment, but yeah, she's good. She's a good actress, of course. And then James Remar plays Tiresias, where I think I know which character he was, but like I said, when I was going through the credits, and I was like, oh, was that him? Again, I don't want to talk about it now, maybe later in spoilers, but like I said, big cast. I know I've missed some people here and there. Like, I didn't pull out every name when I was going through the cast, but yeah, big cast. I think it's one of those scenarios, I'm sure you've seen interviews, I have as well, where like the only person who asked to read this script was Robert Pattinson. Everybody else was just like, yeah, I'm there, kind of thing. So he has that kind of pull, Christopher Nolan, that is, where people will show up for the projects and are willing to, just get right in there. And obviously Pattinson accepted, and his role is again quite large in the movie, and he's really good. And he plays that super well, where he gets more and more unhinged as the movie goes along, which is great. Yeah, before I want to go further here, I'm going to talk about the movie, but yeah, if you want to just stop here, I would recommend. It was great. Like I said, great performances, great atmosphere, great music. The conductor, Ludwig there, it's not like as traditional of a score. I was listening to it again earlier. What they did was they researched a bunch of like instruments from potentially that era, and he worked with like an anthropologist essentially to recreate a lot of the sounds and the music of that time. So I really enjoyed the score. I thought it really went well with the movie. I'm a big sucker for a good movie score, so yeah, that was really great. Like I said, cinematography was great. The like the boat stuff, all of it just sucked me in, and I was loving it the whole time. One thing I really did also appreciate, because I think I've seen some pictures online about like different aspect ratios and stuff like that, so I didn't see it in IMAX, but the screen was in the correct ratio, because I didn't realize. Obviously Christopher Nolan loves his IMAX, but the entire movie is shot in IMAX, which I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. And so, yeah, the aspect ratio was correct for my screening. So I got the full, what is it, like 1.43 by 1, whatever it is, ratio. So, yeah, I was able to see the full thing. So it was great. Yeah. But yeah, from here on out, I think I'm just going to talk about the movie. I'm not going to go, it's 3 hours long. I don't think I'm going to go like, every plot beat by plot beat, but I just want to talk about a few things here and there that I really enjoyed. So yeah, spoilers from here on out. Yeah, so I haven't read, like I said, the Odyssey or the Iliad, so I'm not sure about its formatting and stuff like that, but this movie, of course, has some classic Christopher Nolan timeline jumping around, right? But again, so well edited and put together that you can follow where we are and what we're seeing, kind of a thing. So it's not, you're not lost in temporally just being like, oh, like you're lost, at sea with the guys, sure, but you're not lost of just like, wait, whose storyline are we following, kind of a thing. There's maybe a few moments here and there, but then that's just until it like starts to build, and then you can kind of click it all together to be like, okay, here's like our 3-4 main story kind of time frames that we're in. And yeah, it flashes, of course, with Matt Damon telling his story of his Odyssey, and a lot of Anne Hathaway and Tom Holland, more so in the beginning, because it's setting up like the situation with Penelope and Ithaca, the island that Odysseus is king of, to be like, he's been gone for so long. People are like, hey, you should remarry. There's no king. There's rumors of like war and raids. Like we need to be able to do something. And Tom Holland is not of age yet, but almost coming of age. So he's like, well, I could become king, but they're, he's inexperienced and young. So yeah, big conflict there. And I didn't realize, of course, they filmed in many locations, but the interior of Anne Hathaway's palace or hall, what's the word they used? But yeah, that was built in a soundstage, and the set was 3 stories tall and the length and width of a football field. So it had Penelope's chamber and the Great Hall, where everything kind of, all that stuff happens. So I was like, oh, I mean, again, so it looks entirely real. That I didn't even kind of think about it. That I just assumed that they like found a location of some sort, but no, it made more sense, obviously, that they built it that way. But yeah, so we're setting up their story, then we're flashing with Odysseus, and he's telling his story, and we're getting some more than I was expecting, honestly, of the Troy and the siege of Troy and stuff like that, because of course that's why he leaves, is to go join Agamemnon in his war against Troy. And so yeah, it was a bigger part of the movie than I was expecting, but pleasantly surprised. And so yeah, we get flashes of that until near the end, when we get kind of like not the full, but a big telling of the entire siege, which I really enjoyed. I almost didn't expect it ever to kind of come back, because we saw some stuff here and here there. Menelaus tells Tom Holland's character like about it as well, because he was in the horse with Odysseus, and so they kind of flash back and forth. And so I was like, oh, this is really kind of cool. And I was just as happy with that personally, until they kind of come back full circle, and then we see Odysseus's POV for the siege and the ending of that. So, big action scene and what have you. Yeah, very cool. But then, yeah, we get some classic stuff where after they leave on the journey, we get the Cyclops, and then we get the witch as aforementioned. They end up going to varying locations, of course, because it's the Odyssey. But the underworld and all these things, and great sequence with like the sirens and all sorts of stuff like that. So it was very cool, and just the different locations and all the boat stuff was really well done. I really enjoyed that Odysseus, while he is their commander and stuff like that, like so many times like he jumps on the oars to like help out and everything. Like he's not just, I'm above it all because I'm like the commander. Like he's a man of the people, as it were. And that's why his people follow him and stuff, right? Like because he's in there, not just lording above them, as it were. Really well told. Matt Damon looks great. I was reading in a Variety article that he cut weight down to like 167 for the movie. Nolan asked him to grow his beard, and that was like, he was like, oh, that might be a bigger challenge, because he's like, I've never grown a beard. For me, I think his beard looks really good, except for maybe there's a couple shots, maybe that they were reshot. I don't know. Like there was a couple times where his beard was like, I was like, a little wonky-ish, but minor quibble, right? But yeah, so eventually it all kind of culminates where he makes it back home, of course, and intense scenes with him and Anne Hathaway and him and Tom Holland, and trying to figure out what to do. And it culminates in a big action scene where, like, he, despite being away for so long and on this journey, like he still got it, right, kind of thing. And it goes wild. Yeah, big fight to end the movie and stuff like that. So yeah, very good, very entertaining. Like I said, I was just sucked in and glued to my seat the entire time. It was very well paced. Like, I think because it is a giant book, and it translated to a 3-hour movie, of course, that like there's always like the next thing. Like there was so much that happened in the movie, so it was like every 5 minutes there's just something else. Like there versus other movies that are kind of like, I'm thinking of like, say, like a Hostiles or like Apocalypse Now, where there are more contemplative scenes in between stuff. Like there are some here, but it's either because it flips to a different POV, so we get a little bit of like, oh, okay, we're not like in as much peril, but it's like we know those guys are still in peril. So like I said, it really kind of keeps its energy up for the entire runtime, surprisingly, right? Like just because of all the stuff that's going on. So yeah, super good viewing experience in that way. I highly enjoyed it. Yeah, do want to check it out again. The book, not the book, the ship, sorry, was it's called the Draken, and it's a full-scale long ship built to ancient specifications from period-appropriate materials in Norway, Stavanger, Norway. And it's apparently crossed the Atlantic Ocean twice, and it came with a full sailing crew who were part of the movie. So that's cool. I was wondering the entire time, like, again, I guess I could have tried to look it up a little more. I didn't see anything in articles except for about how, like, the boat, were they doing tank? Were they on the ocean? I was reading an article, one of the Variety article was talking, I think when they were in Greece, like for like the first day of shooting, there was like giant windstorm, and they were like, well, we got to go out and shoot. And then like the locals are, were like, what are these people doing out there? With their crazy IMAX cameras and stuff like that. that was one thing as well. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the tech. Like they designed a new camera, IMAX camera for this slash for Nolan, and it can only shoot for 3 minutes. Which thinking at the time, because that article was kind of sort of joking because Tom Holland was like, oh, like why are we always cutting so early? And it was like, oh, the camera literally can only do 3 minutes. It kind of eliminates the potential of a oneer of a longer period. Like 3 minutes is still a long time in film, like if you're watching an action scene in particular, but it's just kind of like it limits that. And I was like, oh, that's something that maybe could obviously be worked on. Obviously with you can stitch the shots together and that's not a problem, but it's just like that potential oneer scenario can't really occur with a 3-minute time limit. But again, the way everything's edited now and what have you. Apparently, the crew figured out a way to swap out the film that was very quick, so people didn't have to like leave set and reset. And we're like, oh, okay. It's like no, they could just like stay still, reload up the film, and then like continue shooting. So that process probably really helped the performances and what have you, and probably the scheduling, so they don't have to walk away for an hour while someone changes out film. So to light Troy, which was of course a huge night sequence without actual fire, they invented devices that they called pyrohedrons, which were triangle-shaped circuit boards studded with hexagon-shaped arrangements of LEDs that emitted light mimicking the color and movement of fire. And then so they made thousands of these and shipped them to the set, which is just funny because it's like a different version of like a gel in front of a camera. But yeah, it's just like, well, we can't set everything on fire, so we'll just use LEDs to do it instead. So there was tons of costumes. I think I was reading something like 5,300 costumes or something like that, for the main armor in particular that like Matt Damon and his crew wear. They basically like researched how salt water affects stuff and like fabrics, and just weathered the heck out of it, right? Because it all looks like dark and pitted and beaten up, because it's like, yeah, these guys wore it for 10 years in a siege and then now are on the ocean and just getting sprayed down all the time and stuff like that. So again, yeah, like a level of research that was kind of cool. And I think I was saying as well, because of the IMAX resolution in particular, that you can see synthetic fabrics like differently, so they lean towards more natural fabrics and stuff like that, and you can tell when you're watching it, everything looks like it has fibers and real texture to it. So yeah, looks great. I thought this one was kind of funny because Anne Hathaway went under like she did weeks of training on weaving on an ancient loom, so she would look know what she's doing. But in the movie, of course, it's like there's like 3 shots of her doing that kind of thing. But it's just like you just gotta look like you're pro, right? For those 3 shots. Yeah, I thought this was kind of fun as well. Just because, like, independently, I didn't even, maybe subconsciously, but recently I watched 4 old Ray Harryhausen pictures from, back in the 70s. I watched the 3 Sinbad movies and Jason and the Argonauts, and it was kind of fun to see the progression through those movies, because like in the first Sinbad movie, at the end of the movie, he fights a skeleton, just one, and it's great. It's like the showstopper. It looks incredible. And then of course in the next movie they make, Jason and the Argonauts, they fight an army of skeletons. So it's just kind of like you could see the progression through his skills and technology and stuff like that. But yeah, Ray Harryhausen was an inspiration for Christopher Nolan to make this movie. He's said in interviews how he's just like, oh, there hasn't been an attempt to do like a big budget version of this kind of thing in a long time. So that was one of his inspirations to do it. The Cyclops was giant. it was Bill Irwin, and he's worked with him before to do like Tars and Case from Interstellar. And what they did is they built like a 60-foot or something like that, a giant like puppet. And then of course they had Bill Irwin do performance, and then they mashed them together in a sense through CG. No, but yeah, no. So big stuff there. Yeah, and then the Troy set was built in at Ben Hadu near the Atlas Mountains in Morocco and was more than 2.5 acres. And it's funny watching it as well. Like, you can tell some of the locations that they go to, they've been used in other movies, but they look so great in this kind of movie because they fit that epic and that Greek epic in particular. So, lots of fun. Like I said, I don't want to give everything away. And yeah, some of that, like, I was reading a few Variety articles about the movie and just trying to like suss out some stuff. But just some interesting facts that I kind of discovered along the way. But I'm just going to keep repeating myself if I keep talking. So yeah, enjoyed the movie. Highly recommend. Check it out. There's not much more to say without me just spoiling and rambling a bunch about it. So yeah, Odyssey, check it out. If you have any questions, suggestions, topics, things I missed about the Odyssey, you can email us, tomeofuselessness@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, tomeofuselessness.com, to find other episodes with myself and Devin. We're also, of course, on all sorts of podcatchers, Apple and Spotify and all that kind of good stuff. So, more episodes there. And stay safe. Thanks for listening.